So my occupational disability is, over the past, say, 8 years, I've been in something like between 1,800 and 2,000 classrooms in something like 450 to 500 schools in 6 states and 3 countries. This experience has had a hugely radicalizing effect on me because I do not believe in the institutional structure of public schooling anymore. I view the work that I continue to do with schools, and I take it seriously, as palliative care for a dying institution. So that, for me, is the subtext of what I'm about to say. One of the most powerful, one of the 3 or 4 most powerful books I've read in my life has been George Lakoff's Metaphors We Live By. And I just want to give you 2 metaphors that structure the piece that we wrote for the volume and that lead to my analysis. The first is this idea of what I think is actually quite sophisticated idea that has dominated policy discourse. At least, I think Bob Schwartz gave the biography of this idea. It's Mike Smith and Jennifer O'Day and Kentucky. And I would call this metaphor nested hierarchy, which is there are levels of governance, and each level has a comparative advantage and some function to perform. And the organizing principle within nested hierarchy is this idea of coherence. And coherence is something that's deeply affected my practice with schools. The project I run currently that's the most clinical of the practices I do is called the Internal Coherence Project, which is helping schools develop a culture that's focused on high-powered instruction. There are 2 big forces which 10 years from now everybody in this room will be saying, we knew this was happening and we'll be taking it for granted. No one's really talking about this now. One is the world is moving from in its organizational form, this kind of hierarchical model to a model of networks, basically. So the central organizing principle for society and for learning, forget about schooling for the time being, for learning is going to be networked relationships. It's not going to be hierarchy. So right now, with Race to the Top, we've got 1 foot on the brake, 1 foot on the accelerator, both full speed, right? Driving coherence down into the organization at a time when the entire world is shifting to another organizational model. If you haven't seen Sugata Mitra's TED Talk, you should get online and look at it, because this is a person who's actually described what the world will look like and has existence proofs. The footnote I'd like to put in here is that one of the things we say in our chapter is that the future is now. Everything I'm about to say has an existence proof at a scale which should be persuasive to American educators. So the idea that the central organizing principle for Sugata Mitra's networking is community. And he starts from the premise that in most learning settings with high proportions of disadvantaged kids, there aren't enough teachers to do the work that's necessary, so we have to invent a model that overrides the teaching function, basically. I'm also working on a program in Mexico, in rural schools in Mexico, that will now be up to about 6,000 schools that operates on a networking principle. So here are some implications for the argument we make in the piece. And I want to say I am more radical on this set of issues than my co-authors. So there will be a progressive and steady dissociation between learning and schooling. Inevitably. Learning is alive and well in society. The means for access to learning will be more flexible and more responsive to individual demand, however it's organized, How it's organized is going to be up for grabs. It will not accommodate well to the nested hierarchy model. In fact, the longer we stay with the nested hierarchy model, the worse the dissociation between learning and schooling will be. That is, now, this is not an argument that it's a good future. Actually, there are huge issues of access and equity associated with what's going to happen. This is not a normative argument. This is a predictive argument. I've only seen one quote-unquote system that's managed to try to get out ahead of this issue in a positive way, and that is Victoria, Australia, and I'd be happy to talk to you about what that model looks like. For the most part, the ways in which public school organizations are trying to accommodate to the digital age are totally dysfunctional. And these institutions will die as a consequence of that. Finally, just an argument about neuroscience. I'm on leave, so I'm actually taking the neurobiology course at Berkeley online. I look back on my classroom observations and I think this is an institution that once the findings of neurobiology start to leak out into the broader society can't possibly survive. The modal classroom in the modal public school in this